Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Marvel Fan Theories podcast. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Katie, and we're two sisters and borderline obsessed Marvel fans who have been following the Marvel Cinematic Universe closely for years. And now we want to share our MCU discussions with you.
We chat about our own predictions and theories, plus some of our favorites from online, and our reactions to all of the Marvel content that's considered MCU canon, including the Disney Plus shows and the movies, as well as the Marvel news you need to know. All right, everyone. It is now the back half of opening weekend for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which means if you're listening to this, you've hopefully gone and seen it. If you haven't seen it, please stop, go watch it, come back. But I'm super excited to dive into this. As we've talked about in the predictions and in all the episodes leading up, this is the first new content of 2023, and we'll get into it in a second, but I was excited by it. I really enjoyed it, but I'm gonna let Katie kick it off as always. So give us your initial thoughts, Kate, because we have a lot to talk about in this episode.
Oh, yeah. So if any of you are following me on Twitter, you know, walking out of that movie theater, I gave Ant-Man an 8 out of 10. I would say in the meantime of thinking about it, digesting it, it's only dropped to a 7.5 out of 10 in my opinion. I do like having a little time to digest, take it all in. I thought, you know, visually, and this is probably one of the first movies I really thought about this, I was like, wow, this is almost all CGI, right? Like, think about this. This is a whole realm that, and I mean, I'm sure, like, Thor and all that, but, like, there's not really a lot of buildings that they're inside other than Kang's, like, area. So I'm like, they're physically, like, this is a lot of CGI. For the most part, it looked really, really good.
I agree.
It was very well done. I thought it was weird. It needed to be. I've been reading a lot of complaints about that, and that's a lot of people are comparing it to Eternals because I guess a lot of people didn't like Eternals because it was different. First off, you all know I loved Eternals. Second, I love this movie because it needed to be different. We're in the quantum realm. Like, we're not supposed to be just, like, doing the same old here. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. First of all, me too. And then to just react to what you just said there, yes, it was weird, but it wasn't like, all right, we all know how I felt about Thor Ragnarok as time went on. I rated it as one of my lower movies of...
Ragnarok?
Sorry, not Ragnarok, Love and Thunder.
Okay, I was like, whoa, Ragnarok's a national treasure.
No, sorry, apologies, Ragnarok is up there as, like, one of the best of all time.
That's what I thought.
Yes. Thank you for catching that egregious blunder, because that was embarrassing. Love and Thunder, as you all know, I rated as one of my lowest movies of all of Phase 4. That was weird in a bad way. It was trying too hard to be weird, right? And you felt it.
Yeah, to be out of the box.
Yeah, this was just naturally weird in a good way. And it felt good, and it was actually funny. Now, is that because, and this is no shade to Chris Hemsworth, but is that because Paul Rudd is a natural comedian and that's what he spent his career doing? Sure. But also, was it just written really well? Yeah, it was a really solid movie. I genuinely enjoyed it. I liked really getting to dive more into the Pim Van Dyne family. I liked seeing the dynamics. I liked that she called him Grandpa Hank. It was making me so happy. So I like that at its core, you know, the movie was about this family and their adventures in it and learning about it and Janet's betrayal and, like, learning about her experiences and all that for, like, 30 years. And that was really fun, but at the same time, like, there was this huge, like, we were in a completely new realm. Kang was, like, Jonathan Majors. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, you know, good as He Who Remains, but he had, like, 20 minutes of screen time? Not even. He was in, like, a half an episode, yeah. But, like, as Kang, the Conqueror, not He Who Remains, I mean, he just stole every scene. He was magnificent. And it just was such a solid movie. My one complaint is that I did not think they were going to defeat him. I thought that was almost too easy in a sense, because I get that they're setting it up for kind of what we weren't really expecting in the Council of Kangs, but I almost wish that there had been some sort of larger consequence coming out of it besides just, oh, the Conqueror's dead, now we're gonna come. Like, I don't want to say I wish a character had died because that sounds morbid and awful, but I wish there had been some sort of, like, consequence coming out versus, like, the whole family coming in, like, out of the quantum realm completely intact and, like, you know, yeah, maybe a little traumatized, but nothing outside of that. That's really, like, dark and morbid, but I think we kind of needed that. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
Well, if we're skipping right to the end, my thing was that, you know, I was torn a little bit. I kind of understand what you're saying. I didn't hate that they made it out of there because of Hope coming back for him.
Yeah.
I think if he would have beat him on his own, and I'm not saying this against Ant-Man at all. Clearly he showed, you know, why he's an Avenger in this film.
100%.
But, you know, I think if he, you know, with Hope coming back, I think it reinforced their Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Mm-hmm.
And so that to me was very fitting because I did think he was going to die. I thought they were going to lose and she came back for him. So I thought, you know, that was worthwhile. The big thing for me was actually at the very end, before any credits, we go back to that montage we kind of get at the beginning with Scott's like living life, you know, and the whole time I obviously had gone and seen this with my boyfriend and the whole time I was like, something bad's happening. I was like, something's not right. I was ready for like, just like, I don't know, a little something. And I mean, we did have a small moment where he was like, or I could have just like unleashed an entire, like, but I was expecting like something in the background to not be right. Like they didn't make it back into the right place or they did like something was screwed up. And I was expecting a little something bigger from the actual end of the movie itself, which I don't feel like we got.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, you mentioned how he talked about, like, oh, maybe I'm really messed up. I think I was expecting that to pay off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, obviously we got the Council of Kangs introduced and, like...
But that's an end credit.
Right.
So I don't count that as part of the movie, you know?
But, like, now we know, like, what the dynasty is gonna be, right? It's gonna be the Council of Kangs, which I was not expecting, but I'm really excited. I think that's gonna be, like, really intense. But... to your point, like, other than the Council of Kangs, like, I kind of wish we had gotten... Let me put it this way. I wish that we had gotten something in 616 that showed that ramification. And I understand it's not going to be an immediate payoff, but, like, I just needed, like, not something earth-shattering because we're not there yet. We're a few years away. There's a lot of movies and shows that have to happen between now and then before something earth-shattering. But give me a little morsel. Show me that there's a little tear in the multiverse. Show me that... you know, I don't know, but give me something in 616, not just somewhere out there is a Council of Kangs and they're coming, you know?
No, that's how I felt. And that's why I said, you know, I was okay with how the battle ended. I was okay with them defeating him because, you know, his whole point was, I see time. If you defeat me, like, you're just doing what you're supposed to do. He was playing, like, a weird mind game with them, but it was still true.
Yeah.
So that made sense to me. And I was okay with how that went, but because I didn't feel like we got that payoff at the very, very end of it, I was like, okay, so I didn't love that ending. I wanted to see a little something. I wanted to, like, even if it was just, like, a moment where Ant-Man stops talking, or he just kind of moves on, or the camera itself just pans away from him to something. Like anything else that kind of is just that small inclination that something went wrong and that the effects of what we saw in the quantum realm is playing out in our world because, and we'll get into this, but, you know, Janet confirms the quantum realm is literally running parallel with ours. It's underneath our world. So you would think there would still be ramifications somewhere within all of it.
I was shocked that multiversal transportation device that he had exploding did not have larger ramifications on the multiverse. I was like, all right, cool. Like, are we seeing another end of Loki moment where, like, is this just going to exponentially, you know, grow the multiverse and create new universes? Like, that's almost, I was like, oh, that's got to be big. And then it had zero effect. I'm like, you can't just tell me that because it's in the quantum realm that it's not going to, like, something that powerful exploding and sending that kind of energy out into the multiverse
just does nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially because it does appear, and now we didn't obviously get confirmation of this, but it does appear that if you look at parts of the film, there's like that yellow steam almost coming down in columns from I don't feel comfortable using the word ceiling because it's really their sky, but if you think that this world is technically underneath ours, it really is sort of a ceiling, I suppose. And you see it coming down in multiple areas, multiple clips of the film and everything. You see it even in the trailers. And I do remember going into it, I had seen a theory somewhere of someone, you know, is that our world seeping? You know, is it just like how that works? So if I run with that theory, because like I said, we had no confirmation that that's true or not true, you know, you would think, to your point, some of these things would have bigger ramifications in the world that lives above us. If we get to the quantum realm by shrinking, the whole movie, I put this together by thinking, we're like germs. The quantum realm is just like a big germ everywhere. Like, that's how I was thinking about it. So I'm like, if the quantum realm's like germs, you would still think there's some sort of effect bigger into our world if you just blew up something that can transport you around the multiverse.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I was very shocked that did not pay off in some way.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
I agree. The ending itself was a little weak, but I want to pivot to the beginning because I also felt the beginning was weak. It was the meat in the middle that I was great. I loved. But I will say I wasn't digging the beginning either. I didn't mind, you know, his little exposition with him, you know, living his life. This is what he's been up to. I didn't mind how we were introduced to Cassie and how Hope got brought back in. Like, I enjoyed it all. I liked that. It made me feel like I was catching up with them after not seeing them for who knows how long, right?
Yeah.
And I understand there was the attempt to get us into the quantum realm and spend most of the film there. I understand that's where this goal was. However, I felt like I was being, you know, given something in a very short amount of time, and next thing I know, we were in the quantum realm. And I just feel like there was a part of me that wanted a little bit more of that exposition, just a little bit more to grow where we were at. I mean, we haven't seen them since Endgame. And before that, I mean, we saw Scott in Endgame for most of it. But before that, we haven't seen them since Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like, I needed a little bit more, I felt like, before we just jumped right into the quantum realm. And then we just jumped right into the quantum realm. And I was like, guess that's all I'm getting. Like, I don't know. I just felt like I just needed a little bit to get me going in the film.
See, that didn't bother me, to be honest. Because to your point, like, I think I knew we were going to go there pretty early just based on the trailers. That was the one thing that I felt pretty confident in knowing. And I kind of wanted to just get into the action. Like, I felt like what we got was enough. It was enough to say how Scott's life has completely changed since Endgame, and all of the events that happened were kind of publicized. Now we know how everyone knows what happened in Endgame because Scott wrote a book about it. Also, he was doing all this podcast stuff. Go Scott. But, you know, so it was nice to get that little bit of intro, but I liked that it didn't lag. Like, I thought the pacing was really well done in this film just overall. Like, it was a, you know, almost 2 hour film. And I was like, dang, like, I didn't feel like it was a 2 hour film at all. And so I just thought it was really, you know, it was snippy in its pacing, and that it was like, all right, you want to get into the quantum realm. Here's all the information you need to know in order to follow these characters in there. And then you're just going to go and we're going to, you know, hit the ground running. And so I actually really enjoyed that because I think sometimes, and this isn't just Marvel movies, but just movies in general, they take so long on the setup. You're like, come on, like, we all know we're here for this one thing. Like, let's get to the one thing. Whereas, like, this one was just like, no, we all know you're here for the quantum realm, so we're going to get you right in there. And I enjoyed that.
Which is fair. And I'm not saying I need an extra, like, whole 5 minutes, but I just felt like, give me another minute or two. Give me to understand these. Because, like, here's the thing. We know Hope, we know Hank, and we know Scott. I don't pretend to know Janet.
No.
I don't pretend to know this grown-up Cassie. So for me, that was what really I think I needed a little bit, just like a little bit more of, was I just needed to understand these two fairly newcomers at this point in this dynamic, understanding how this has played out since Endgame, more than what I feel like we got. I just needed a little bit more, and I think we explored a little bit more of it in the quantum realm, when I feel like there's a part of me that's like, maybe if we would have explored just a little bit more at the beginning, some of these moments in the quantum realm that I did feel like fell, okay, like I'm ready for the next part, wouldn't have been as needed. And it was because, you know, we see, especially with Janet, we see her and her family like talking about what happened in the quantum realm, but like we barely know Janet as a character.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So I think that was like the biggest thing for me, is if it would have been just Scott, Hank, and Hope, I would have been like, all right, we can go right in the quantum realm right from the get-go. I don't care.
Yeah.
That's fine. I've spent time with these characters. I know them. I get them. I'm good.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Actually, one thing I want to bring up really quick about Scott in that intro that it kind of struck me during this film that I never really thought about before. But, like, so much of Phase 4, and, like, now, remember, this is the first official anything of Phase 5, because I don't really know what they're thinking with the Guardian special, because it was pretty clear, you know, Wakanda Forever was the end of 4, and then the Guardian special happened after, and you're kind of like, limbo? But either way, this was kind of the first official, you know, property of Phase 5, And so much of Phase 4 was focused on either creating new characters, which was awesome, or seeing a lot of characters come out of Phase 3. Those characters who came out of Phase 3, 97% of them were traumatized in some way, broken in some way, lost something massive, like just absolutely destroyed coming out of Endgame. I mean, Wanda, Thor, Bucky, Sam, they all are carrying something awful with them after, I mean, look at Peter, like all the people who came out of that film are just dealing with it, and we saw it all, right? But what struck me is Scott actually came out of Endgame better off than when he entered it, right? Like, nobody knew who Ant-Man was, any of this stuff. Now he's a celebrity and people love him, and he has a book and he has a podcast and like all this stuff, and he's like Mr. Popular Avenger because he saved the universe, which rightfully so. But like, Scott's the only guy who came out of this, other than losing 5 years of time with Cassie, which, don't get me wrong, is huge and obviously something that weighs on him tremendously. But other than that, Scott's in a much better position, than he was pre-Endgame, which I thought was really interesting because he's the only character, I think, who has had that experience, whereas everyone else is like, going off the deep end a little bit, or like really struggling with something, coming out of that.
Yeah, I do think that's pretty interesting. And I guess I didn't really, because of the nature of his films, it didn't really dawn on me about that, because it's just, his films it's like the Guardians. His films are meant to be comedic.
Yeah.
That's the character of who he is. That's what they bring to him. That's what the writing puts together. I know some people complain about, Marvel comedy and blah, 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 and whatever. Have your thoughts to whatever it is. But to me, this is the type of franchise that, it works with. It's a very fitting franchise. And so, but it does sometimes make some of those moments harder to decipher. Like, you don't really pick up on that. Because honestly, I didn't think about it. I just was like, good for him.
Yeah.
Like, not thinking a thing of it. I just was like, good for him,
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, go Scott, go little Ant-Man. I forget what his little line is. What is it? Watch out for the small guy or whatever? Like,
the little guy.
Yeah. Keep your eye on the little guy or whatever his little catchphrase is. And then, okay, I just, really quick aside, when Hank quotes his book and he was like, you read my book? I was like, the fact that they like now have a father-son relationship just was giving me so much life.
But that was kind of another thing that I was missing, which I think I needed the extra minute or two of exposition to explain, was I was like, I understand him and Hope are together. What does that mean? Cassie's calling Hank grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm like, did I miss a wedding? Like, and I'm not saying you have to have had a wedding at all, but I'm like, is there, like, what's the nature of this relationship fully? Which I feel like we don't really see a lot of. And so, like, then from the get-go, I was like, whoa, I feel like I missed another, 5 years. What is happening? Because she was dusted.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. We don't yet know where this falls on the spectrum fully of timelines since Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm, sitting here and I'm like, I feel overwhelmed because I'm seeing these characters for the first time, if some of them, quite a few years. And I'm like, I need to understand where we're at. Like, I just jumped into this family dinner and I'm just like, when did all this happen?
Yeah, no, that's very fair. I'm very excited for kind of the timeline reveal when they put it on the Disney Plus timeline, or, I think that's pretty much how they're doing it now. It's just like, where do they slot it in? So I'm excited for that moment. It's probably going to be like, what are they doing? 2 months now, 10 weeks, between.
Yeah, but what sucks is they're putting them together through the phases. So phase 4 will be put in order, but phase 5 could, you know what I mean? They've been ordering them through the phases. So this movie, even though it's phase 5, could have still been before other things.
Bummer. Okay. Well, they're going to have to tell us eventually. I mean, they have to.
Yeah.
It just needs to be a thing. Anyway, we'll let you all know when that comes out and we have definitive timing, because this is a really important movie, which we're going to get into. But before we get into all the multiversal things, because we could spend probably 90% of the episode talking about that, let's dive a little bit more deeply into the characters. We talked a little bit about how Janet and Cassie are kind of more new characters, because Janet we've only seen for a few minutes in reality, and Cassie's an adult now, which last we saw her, she was 9. So she's basically a new person. Obviously Scott and Hope's relationship has progressed to the point where She's basically a stepmom to Cassie, which is awesome. Love their dynamic. And we're just seeing, the family dynamics. But I think there's a lot to talk about too, like individually in terms of growth. I think, let's start with Cassie because she's probably one of the bigger ones that we need to talk about, knowing what her potential future is. And this is the first time we saw her suit up as Stinger, which is a really big moment.
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts on Cassie. Obviously, we talked about this. She was recasted for reasons I'm not entirely sure. I've seen people talk about it on Twitter. I don't know. I don't have sources, so I'm not going to sit here and spew possible misinformation. So I don't know why the actress who had played her in Endgame was recasted. First off, I'm just going to start with the one bad moment of CGI I noticed was the first time she suited up. And I don't know what happened, but it looked so bad in those moments. And I was like, dude, this is the first time a superhero is suiting up fully and is fighting in her suit. And it just looked pure crap. That was the one moment I noticed out of the whole film that I was like, yikes. Anyway, that's like not the important part. The actress I thought was pretty good, but I had some problems. Like when she was supposed to be emotional or scared or fearful, I felt like we were missing all of that on her face. Like I'm pretty sure it was towards the end where something was happening with her dad. Obviously they were in battle and she screams out dad out of what's supposed to be terror and fear and like she's worried about her father and there's not a single emotion on her face. And I just was like, okay, I'm so believing that right now.
Like one of those moments she really thought that was just a voiceover and didn't realize she was on camera.
Yeah, I was like, listen, I'm not even close to an actress, but I was like, I think I could show some emotion on my face. I was like, did they mean to put that in there? Because I'm sorry. So and there were it was a couple of those deeper moments that I felt like I missed that a little bit on her character, and that that could have just been the way the film was put together. I don't know, but that was just my 2 cents from the actual portrayal of the character. Otherwise, I was liking Cassie. I thought she, she's her father's daughter, and you can tell. From the get-go, we get that with her, already being in jail. Mm-hmm. But she stands up for what she believes in, and that's, admirable to me. And look at, Scott and who he was. So I'm not surprised at who she is. I hope as they continue with this actress, she grows into the role a little bit. We work out some of the kinks and, Cassie's somebody who's something to watch out for.
Yeah, I think the character has a lot of potential. I think one of the things that I really enjoyed seeing was, it wasn't just, I'm Stinger because I'm Ant-Man's daughter, but I'm Stinger because I'm also a freaking genius. I can hang in there with Hank Pym and discuss the quantum realm with him. I like how they built that into her character as well. And I'm not really familiar with Cassie in the comics, so I don't know if that's kind of a precedent set for the character in the way she's written in the comics. But either way, I enjoyed that they made that a part of her character because it wasn't just, oh, I just feel the need to do the right thing and I'm going to suit up because my family has all this tech lying around. It's no, I am also really brilliant and let me just create an entire satellite to the quantum realm because I totally understand, my grandpa's scribbles about the quantum realm. I enjoyed that depth as well. And I think it was interesting the dynamic between her and Scott where she kept pushing him to do the right thing. Not that he was doing the wrong thing, but to act. And I thought that was interesting. I think it was the one time that we saw how the events of Endgame affected Scott in the sense that he kind of was I saved the world. I just want to put my feet up and relax. Which actually, now that I'm thinking about it, is kind of what Thanos did between...
when he became a farmer?
Yeah, between Infinity War and Endgame when he was well, I killed half the universe. Goal accomplished.
No, actually, his was, I saved the world. I'm done.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. That was his mentality. In reality, it was, I killed half the universe, so let me just go become a farmer and live a peaceful life. Scott was I brought half the universe back, all me, which low-key it was, and I'm just gonna go live my life with my daughter, which I thought again, was interesting because, like, that was not really his mentality after, you know, in either of the Ant-Man movies. He was like, Mr. Action, like, I can't see my daughter, let me go steal away to go see my daughter. I don't really remember Ant-Man and the Wasp super, super well, but even if you think about, like, you know, Captain America Civil War, like, you know, Falcon called him and he was like, sure, let me help out Captain America. Why the heck not? Like, he was just ready to go. And now he's like, no, I've saved the world. I am done, retired. But Cassie kind of has that young energy and also that naivete of someone who didn't fight a gigantic purple grape and have to bring back half the universe. So it was a really interesting dynamic between the two of them as she, like, pushed him, but he also taught her as a veteran of, you know, these Avengers battles, like, how to, like, survive and, like, all of that stuff. So I enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, I thought, and I know some people don't agree with this statement, but I thought, you know, for daughter and father relationship, I thought they had really good chemistry between the two of them. You know, I was engrossed. It didn't feel like I was sitting there and, you know, I missed this kid's childhood. You know, like, I felt like I saw this relationship, I understood this relationship, and I really enjoy that. You know, the biggest thing that Ant-Man's trilogy truly has been about has been his daughter.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, she has been his main focus through pretty much every point of the film. And the reason he did a lot of what he did at all times was because of Cassie. And we really see that get encapsulated when he's sitting here with thousands of Ant-Mans, and the way he was able to get them to work all together was to get back to Cassie.
Yep.
And to help Cassie.
That one singular focus was to be with my daughter.
Yep. And they all knew what that meant. And that is what caused them to all be able to work together as one to help him. So, you know, as much as the story has been about struggling with time with her, it's all still been about her.
Yeah.
And to that factor is why I'm also kind of happy he, like, didn't kick it this film. Because I feel like now that we have a grown-up version of Cassie, I get to kind of see a bigger relationship between the two of them and how they're molding that together, rather than just seeing a little girl who, of course, is going to look up to her dad. I mean, this Cassie looks up to her dad for a lot of other reasons, and as somebody who's, like, 16, to be able to look up to your father and act and, like, you know, be in that mindset. I mean, teenagers are weird. Like, you know, not every teenager is going to sit there and be like, I literally, like, my dad's awesome and I want to be around him and he's, like, my favorite person. Like, not everybody's feeling that.
Yeah.
So, like, towards parents in general. So, you know, to have that type of relationship, even though they missed a couple years, I thought they meshed really well together.
Totally. And I hope, to your point of not seeing Scott die, I do hope we get to see him mentor her. Like, I enjoyed those scenes where he was like, shrink, grow, and then punch. Or, like, whatever his little mantra was, where he was, like, teaching her how to, like, use the momentum of the size changing and all of that. Like, that's something that, you know, to bring it back to another kind of mentor-mentee relationship, and obviously it's different because they're not father-daughter, but, like, Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, like, we saw that too, and I think that was something that you and I really enjoyed in that show, was watching him teach her how to be a hero and an effective hero and, like, not do stupid things.
It's a good dynamic.
Yeah, it is. And I think having the father-daughter layer adds another, you know, level of complication, but also interest to that story then, because it's not just some guy who has a girl following him around all the time, but it's like, no, like, you're my daughter. I literally would destroy the multiverse for you. Like, but I'm also going to teach you how to be a baddie and fight. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Well, and maybe this is the Gen Z in me about to talk, but, like, there's a part of me that really enjoys these relationships as well, because we are seeing a form of the mantle passing, but the mantle is passing to pretty much our generation.
Yeah.
You know, we're seeing, like, you know, growing up, all our heroes were, you know, assumed to be in their 30s and 40s and maybe even a little older, you know? And we're seeing a lot of these mantles being passed to the generation that is ours.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think maybe there's a part of me too that's enjoying that relationship, because I sit here as somebody who's in their very early 20s, and, you know, I'd be acting the way Kate Bishop acted, you know, if I suddenly was half becoming an Avenger and, like, my role model is suddenly my mentor. Like, I get it, and I'm there, and that's what makes these characters, in my opinion, some of my favorite coming onto the screen, because they're just so relatable. Like, not the same type, but, like, Katie from Shang-Chi, loved her. She was Aquafina. Literally, I was, like, dying from her. Like, she was so good.
She was great. Also, Kamala Khan,
Exactly.
one of the most relatable in her fandom, in the way she acted, like, to your point, like, I feel like in phase 4, I've been able to relate to characters way more than I was in 1 through 3. And that's obviously not to shade the characters of 1 through 3. That's why we're here. We fell in love with those characters, but they're more aspirational versus like these characters. I'm like, we would be best friends. Me and Kamala Khan would be like the best of friends if I was in high school at the time she was in high school. Like, we would 100% be like attached to the hip. I know that for a fact. And so I'm like, oh, this is someone who I could see myself being friends with versus like Black Widow. I'm like, I literally could never relate to you, but I think you're cool. You know, like, it's a very different type of relationship.
Yeah. No, I think Kate, Yelena, and I would make quite the trio.
I'm literally terrified.
With our martial arts and everything else.
Yeah, I'd be dead in 5 seconds. Like, you would, you know, put them on me and I'd be like, well, I'm just gonna go lay in my grave now because that's where I'm going.
Yeah, but I think that's what I'm loving about these characters. So while I did feel like some of it with Cassie was like, just needs some work on the, like, deeper moments, I did like her a lot. I want to, before we get into Janet, because I feel like Janet goes right into Kang, I want to talk about, don't really know any of their names, kind of just happened, all the people who live in the quantum realm.
That was a fun surprise and I enjoyed them.
So I was gonna disagree.
Ooh.
So first off, I'm gonna give my 2 cents. Whoever Mr. Holman is like my favorite human being or like thing ever.
So cute. When he's like, you just drank me. I'm like, what are you? But you're so cute.
He was so funny. And when he first started being able to understand him, I forget what he was saying, but I was laughing like it was no one's business. I was like, oh my god, this like Jello thing is my fave.
When the first thing you hear is, hi, how many holes do you have? And I was just like, what is happening right now?
Well, that too, I was kind of like, I'm not sure where this is going, but okay. I enjoyed him, and I'm not saying I didn't enjoy the characters we were introduced to. I did like that there was life in the quantum realm. I like that there's pretty much a whole society.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. It's pretty much its own universe. Why would there not be life in it? That feels a little weird that there wouldn't have been.
Well, and one thing I want to say that I thought about, and I can't confirm it, but we talked last episode about the microverse. Like, aren't these some of the characters potentially that were in that line of comics?
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember any of their names, so...
Yeah, I just mean, like, I feel like I saw, like, a cover of a microverse comic in one of the videos I was watching to prep, and I think some of the character designs look kind of similar, so they may have comic book counterparts, but we'll definitely look that one up and put that in the blog for you guys, but I just wanted to put that out there because I thought about that during the film.
Well, my thing with it was, I liked the concept. I think it was working. When we saw Janet and her little trio of family, that worked for me. I understood, like, the people of the quantum realm, that was working. I have to say the whole people sort of putting their revolution against Kang, I wasn't as devoted to it. I don't really know why. I don't know. There's a part of me that was kind of like, we've seen this before. And so I felt a little exhausted by that storyline. The other part of me, I think, was like, if you pulled pretty much most of that out, the same film. Because I loved Hank coming in with all the ants.
Oh my god, that was brilliant.
I thought that was so fitting. I mean, that is our first Ant-Man right there. So I thought that was beyond fitting to see. But when that happened, I was like, so that just overshadowed everything that just happened before that.
Yeah.
With the people of the quantum realm. So then I feel like that's when that solidified to me that I was like, I didn't really need this storyline. You know, Scott and Cassie could have talked to him, got some info, been kidnapped, and we could have never really bothered with them again, like Janet and her trio did with their storyline, and I would have been fine. Like, I really didn't need that storyline to continue. It did, it happened, whatever. I don't know, maybe it was, like I said, it was something I feel like we've seen before. I was bored of it, I just didn't need it.
Yeah, I can see that. I just thought they were interesting characters. I thought the woman leader was awesome. She was a total baddie. I liked William Jackson Harper. I just think he's so fun. He's cheaty. He's always going to be cheaty.
Yeah.
You know, my friend that I went to see it with when I was talking about the shape of the multiverse being a circle, which we'll get into in a little bit, she was like, no, it's not a circle. It's Jeremy Bearimy. Like, Cheaty's right there. So that was like a fun little, like, almost like, I don't know, meta moment. But, you know, speaking of kind of the society in which the Van Dyne / Pym family was seeing, it was actually very reminiscent, if anybody watches Star Wars, like there was like a cantina scene, which is obviously like super famous, and like even the soldiers of Kang, the way they acted in that scene where he's assembling his army to go rise out of the quantum realm. Like, if anybody has seen Attack of the Clones, like that was like such an Attack of the Clones moment where they're all getting ready and like all of that. So there was definitely some homages to like Star Wars and things in there that I thought were really fun, that were really kind of more related to the pre-existing society in the quantum realm.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were picking up on that because they're seeing a lot of that online.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Like, that interaction for me, I was like, this moved the story into the right place, versus I was kind of just feeling like with Scott and Cassie, was like, oh, we just added like a random extra dynamic that now I have to like think about and I have to worry about. And I'm just worried about whatever's going to happen with Kang. And so I'm not really worried about all these people living in the quantum realm who are rising up against Kang. I mean, the ants would have done it themselves. The ants really did do it themselves. So I don't know. I just had mixed feelings, but since we're talking about that scene, let's move into Janet a little bit. I said in the blog post, and I don't know if I said it in our last episode, but I know I wrote it in the blog post, that I was expecting a switch of protagonist. And I was expecting that switch of protagonist to be Janet. And it, for probably 40 minutes of that film, was. We switched and we very quickly saw her become the main character of this film. She was in the quantum realm for like 30 years. We knew this. We knew nothing about it. And, you know, we're seeing the flashbacks, which I thought were very well done to show where her relationship with Kang comes from.
Mm-hmm.
They were bittersweet because obviously you see that she had a way to get home a lot earlier and she chose not to save the universe, essentially. I will say Janet was getting on my nerves, though.
Yes.
Because I literally was like, just tell people you're stuck in the quantum realm. They need to find the other half of the family and you're just keeping secrets like willy-nilly. Like, just talk. You're getting on my nerves.
No, I did find that frustrating. I also think, and this is, you know, one of those things where of course she had to keep the secret because otherwise the, you know, story wouldn't have happened. But like, you know, it was really frustrating to me, at least, when she was saying, well, you know, why didn't you talk to me? Well, this is at the beginning of the film, when she says to Cassie, well, why didn't you talk to me about it? And Hope's like, Mom, literally right here, literally asked you about it 5 minutes ago. You don't want to talk about it. So don't act like now, like all butthurt because, you know, you don't want to talk about it, or, you know, Cassie didn't ask you. And then you think about that and you're like, well, if she had just spoken about her experience there and all of the things that are down there, maybe they never would have made that machine. And I get it. Then you don't have a film. So like that has to be the tension in order to prolong the plot.
Right.
But everything here was Janet's fault. Like, not to be rude, but like, one, she didn't tell anybody anything, so they're just moving naively through this when she has all of the answers. Two, she's the one who pulled the plug that caused the machine to go haywire. I know MODOK was doing it on the other side, but I highly doubt that all of that would have happened if she had just turned it off like a normal human instead of unplugging it. Everybody knows that's the worst thing you can do ever. And three, even within the quantum realm, when their lives are at stake, to your point, she refused to share her knowledge.
Yeah.
It's like, at a certain point, you are responsible for this because you did not share the important knowledge that you know. And it's not just about survival, it's about the overarching politics of what's happening here. You think you're helping. You brought in this guy, Bill Murray's character, whose name escapes me, who actually just sold you out to Kang. So you're not even helping.
Yep.
So just stop. Just tell people what they need to know. And then you can come up with a plan together because clearly you taking charge here is not going to work.
Yeah. She was definitely getting on my nerves. But I did like I said, I did like and enjoy the switch of protagonist. I like seeing her background with Kang. I mean, we talked about that in the predictions episode, that we clearly expected her to have a background. I mean, how could you not?
Well, and I liked that it switched it up by opening the film by her meeting him. I was like, ooh, that was interesting, you know?
Yeah.
I liked that a lot. I think recently a lot of Phase 4 has had some really interesting opening scenes, even going back to one of my least favorites, Love and Thunder, but like that opening scene was really, one, quite moving, but also really well executed. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think recently that opening scene has almost had the same power, but in reverse as the end credit scenes, in the sense that it's like, what way are you going to shock me out of the gate, then lull me into quiet, and then shock me again at the end? So that's been really cool.
Yeah. I agree. And like I said, that felt really well done. She was getting on my nerves because I just was like, dude, your family is at risk here. Like, and if Cassie and Scott had any inkling of information that she had, I'm sure they would have handled some of that situation a lot differently.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They were fully blind in the multiverse, or in the quantum realm. And, so that was aggravating. But she was an interesting character. I don't feel like I know her any better.
No.
She still feels very one note. Like, the only thing I can actively tell you is she's Hope's mother, and she was in the quantum realm for 30 years. That's still probably the only thing I think I can genuinely tell you about Janet Van Dyne. So there's that, that was Janet. That was Janet.
I will say, I think she's a good person. I think we learned that. She may make not always the decisions I think we agree with, but I think one thing that I was really struck with, to her credit, is the choice that she made not to go home to her daughter, but to destroy Kang's time chair in order to save the multiverse, which we'll have to get into because I don't really understand how the multiverse existed in that point of time, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, because I have some crazy thought.
Yeah, so that's our next section, but I just want to finish up really quickly on Janet. I will say I admired that choice, making that sacrificial choice of not being able to be with your family, and to instead go for the betterment of the large group of people. That was admirable.
Yeah. I do agree. I just, like I said, I feel like I still didn't see growth. I didn't see who she was. So I just was like, okay, she's just kind of still there. That's fine. I guess, whatever. But before we hit the multiverse and quantum realm and all that good stuff, let's talk about Kang.
Yep.
So I'm going to say, obviously Jonathan Majors did an amazing job, but it's exactly kind of what I expected it to be, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But I will say I did like them building him up a little bit with those flashbacks. It gave him more to me than just he's there. He's ruling the quantum realm.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that stood out to me was, even though Janet betrayed him, he still wanted to know what she saw, because in the same way that she was so traumatized by looking into his mind, he was almost less saddened by the betrayal and more saddened by the fact that this person he thought was his friend thinks he's a monster. It struck me not that he was like, you betrayed me and I hate you and I'm going to kill you, but he wanted to genuinely know, what did you see? What did you see that made you look at me the way you did? That made you hate me so much that you would forego seeing your own child so that I would not accomplish my goal? And I thought that was really humanizing, and I enjoyed that a lot, because so much of it, to your point, he's the conqueror and he's single-minded in his goal, but with Janet, that's the one place where you saw him soften, you saw him lose focus a little bit, because she's the one person he connected with, and the one person who was willing to help him out of the goodness of her heart and have that bond. And I thought that was really beautiful, and I thought that was really well executed, and just a stunning performance by Jonathan Majors across the film, but especially in that moment, was really powerful.
I agree. And that's what I think, you said it, humanized him a little bit more, because I think what we saw of Kang the Conqueror, the mighty Kang the Conqueror, was, what we expected. Yeah. What we saw in the trailers, what we anticipated. Some might say we see a little too much in the trailers sometimes, and I can sometimes get behind that argument, because I do think in this example, we saw him for who he was immediately. We knew he was going to be a formidable force. We knew that going into it. We weren't really ever expecting much of a twist. We knew what he was trying to do. But to your point, it humanized him. It brought him down from, just this conqueror to this man who just, almost died entering into the quantum realm and crash landed and built this relationship with somebody. But I do want to ask or point out, I don't know, it could be a question, it could be a statement. Janet says something really important, that when she first plugs in his ship, that's what I'm going to say.
It's his timeshare, but that's okay.
Whatever. I mean, it's like a ship, though. He gets where he needs to go in it. It's a ship to me. And obviously, she sees all these visions, whatever. But he suits up. His suit comes onto him. And she makes a comment about, I gave him back just enough with his suit. It brought back who he really was. And that, like, planted a little seed in my brain, right down my brain. And then...
I'd like to remind you, Kate, that the listeners can't see the hand motions that you're doing.
But you can, and you're understanding. And then, you know, they're talking about with his powers, and they're saying, you know, we can't beat him with his, like, the things on... Something with, like, his arms or whatever. So then I was like, so here's my question. Does he have powers, or is whatever his powers tied to his suit, like Iron Man?
It's tech. He's an Iron Man. Like, he's a normal guy. He almost died.
Well, I know that because I know who his background, like, I know his, we talked about it in the predictions a little bit. I understand his background. I just was like, you know, it's always possible in any multiverse. I mean, in some weird version, he could have become Thor. Like...
No, but he killed Thor. That was confirmed.
Yeah, I did. There was a gasp because I was like, Thor died.
Yeah, when she was like, are you the one with the hammer? And I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. But notice how that's the example they gave, and they didn't give somebody like Carol or Wanda.
Well, yeah, to be fair, I think they chose Thor because he has like that iconic symbol of the hammer.
But I more so was saying because of where the Thor franchise might go is kind of what I was saying.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because Chris has made it clear that he believes he'll probably be done at the end of Thor 4. Because I didn't even know there was going to be a Thor 4.
They did 4. Do you mean 5?
5. I pretend Love and Thunder sometimes doesn't exist.
I know. Yeah, I also think, too, you know, looking at Kang's, not powers, but his suit and the type of power that comes out of his suit, he's really well suited to fight a Wanda or a Carol, and they're equally well suited to fight him back.
I don't know if I can argue Wanda, not in the way she is now.
I think she could take him.
I know, but I'm just saying, at least that version of Kang, I'm not sure was worth a fight. I mean, look at how she bodied the entire Illuminati, you know?
Oh, no, you're exactly pointing out my point. I don't think he could have killed Carol or Wanda.
Oh.
I think he could kill a Thor. Thor, you know, we've talked about the most powerful Avengers. It's always Carol and Wanda. It's not, Thor's up there, but he's not. He's just not at their level. Let's just be honest. That's what the point I was very long-windedly trying to get to is they are matched for a Kang in a fight. I see him having more trouble fighting and killing a Carol and a Wanda than a Thor, is all I'm going to say.
Okay, I see where you're at. As long as Wanda's good, I will not argue for Carol, because I don't. I just don't. But for Wanda, I will argue for my gal, and I can agree full-heartedly with Wanda.
Yeah, I think that could also have played into it. I also just think from a logistical standpoint, if you're not going to remember an Avenger's name, who's the easiest? It's either going to be Cap or Thor. But I think, to your point, Thor makes more sense.
Yeah.
And also, they're not going to kill Mackie. He just became Captain America, so.
Yeah.
You know, I'm knocking on wood because please don't, but, like, you know, likely they're not going to.
Agreed. So, now that we established Kang, who he is, we've seen him, cool. As we move into this multiversal discussion and quantum realm discussion, I first want to say, and I'm going to read this verbatim from my notes, where can we get the magic multiverse traveling battery orb? Where did that happen? Are there more? Who has them? What's the source?
Can I try to answer that?
That's why I'm asking.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was rhetorical. I think that is the piece of tech that in the comics Kang develops. Like, doesn't he inherit a time machine from, like, his ancestor? And that's why a lot of people thought he was related to Dr. Doom, and it was kind of confirmed that he was, and all of that. Like, there's something about Kang and, like, inheriting a time machine. I think that is the time machine. Like, that's the one from the comics that, like, literally takes Nathaniel Richards from being some normal Joe Schmo in the year 3000. I'm now thinking the Jonas Brothers song, but from the year 3000 to Kang the Conqueror. I think that's the one from the comics, and I think that's how he got it.
So are there more?
I think every Kang has one.
Okay.
How else would they travel the multiverse?
An intriguing thought. So now here's a thought that I have, like, aggressively underlined in notes here. Where is our Kang?
Repeat the question in words that, like, give more context, because I'm not sure I'm following.
Well, and maybe I'm stupid.
Do you really want to put that out there for me to answer? Just, like, questioning.
It's not a question. It was a statement. So you can't answer it. No, because I'm trying to understand, because, like, And I don't want to quite get into the end credit scene just yet, but obviously we see like a ton of Kangs.
Mm-hmm.
And my brain's like, so Kangs kind of just spawn everywhere. But then I was like, we don't have a Fantastic Four yet, which means technically we don't know if we have a Reed Richards yet, which means we wouldn't have his descendants yet. So I was like, so we don't really have a current Kang in our universe?
Can I raise you one on that?
Dude, I don't know. I don't think I understand.
We do, and here's why. Because and guys, we talked about this before we got on the mic, so just want to tell you, I'm teeing up a very important discussion. We were totally right about the sacred circle.
And by we, I mean primarily me. Give me most of the credit, because I literally said it all.
All right, it's like 70-30. But here's what I'll say.
75.
25, 75, 25, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I can settle for that.
Fine.
Anyway, if we're talking about the sacred circle, which confirmed, we saw it in visuals. Every time we saw a timeline, it was a circle.
Mm-hmm.
So forget your linear crap, people. We are moving in circular time.
Mm-hmm.
Here's why I'm going to tell you we have a Kang. Because somewhere on that circle, Nathaniel Richards is already born. We're just not there yet. We haven't seen it happen. But our Nathaniel Richards of the Sacred Circle of 616 already exists.
Okay, cool. So, do you want to hear where my crazy theory comes in?
Yeah, but also I'm going to debunk my own theory, potentially, and give an alternate. So, you go first, and then I'm going to give an alternate.
Okay, this came to me in the middle of the film, and I didn't share it, because I was like, maybe they'll confirm this during the film, and then it's really not a theory if it's just been confirmed.
Yeah.
But at the end of Loki, our good gal Sylvie kills He Who Remains?
Yes.
Cool, got it right.
Not He Who Shall Be Named. Who Shall Not Be Named.
Yeah, I've been practicing. Because I was like, it's the opposite of what I think it is.
Yeah, whatever I'm naturally going to say, it's not that one.
Exactly. But, so I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay. And the reason the Sacred Circle thought came was because he goes, see you soon, right?
Yeah.
But they were at the end of time. And then I started thinking, I was like, wait, like end of time. But if time's a circle, let me just go with this. If time is a circle and they're like somehow at the end, was that the end of said circle? And is Ant-Man the start of said circle without knowingly realizing Ant-Man is the start of said circle? And everything that is happening because he kills this Kang, which is supposed to happen,
right,
leads to the Kang Wars and all that crap, which eventually He Who Remains will take care of all the other Kangs, snip the multiverse, and create one sacred timeline again. And the TVA and all that crap. And this just keeps happening until something will break it. Which I'm going to assume this time around something would break it because it's now, like, we're watching it, so, like, I would assume we're not going to just keep in a circle.
You actually answered one of my questions that I had. So, I'm going to answer your question, and then
Did I ask a question?
You also kind of proved my theory. I was going to debunk my own theory, but you kind of proved it. So, I'm just going to try to remember all of the thoughts that are going in my head. I'm definitely going to miss some. My first thought is to directly respond to your theory. It's not off. I just think you're placing Ant-Man in the wrong spot. So if you're saying that He Who Remains, snip, 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 one sacred circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're considering that, like, I actually would consider that the beginning, right? End of the Kang Wars, right? Because now we have the sacred circle, we're watching Cap, we're watching...
I mean, it's a circle. Does it really have an end and beginning?
You have a place where it stops evolving and just restarts. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
There is a place in which it stops going from moving forward to, like, rehashing what we've already seen.
Right.
So, follow me on this one. What if the moment at which He Who Remains wins the Kang Wars is the moment that we reset, quote unquote? Now, you have everything leading up, humanity, blah, 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 blah. You have Cap. He does his thing in the first Avenger. Captain Marvel does her thing. Now you have Iron Man all the way through the timeline. Then you get to Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Now you're like midway through because now we're starting to see Kangs again, right? And so now we're building up into what's going to be Kang Dynasty, the multiversal war, all of that, the war between the Kangs, in which we're going to see He Who Remains emerge victorious. Now, because clearly Marvel's not gonna stop after Kang Dynasty. One, we've got films after it, and two, like, they're gonna be telling me when to go to the movie theaters until the day I die. then what I think is going to be the diverging moment is something's going to happen where He Who Remains doesn't, well, first of all, he's dead now, so I don't know how that affects anything, because Sylvie killed him. Not even sure if that was supposed to happen or not. That's a whole other question.
I just assume at this point everything is supposed to happen.
I mean, he said see you soon, so he clearly knew it was coming. So I don't know. But then you have Wanda doing her thing, like, was that supposed to happen? Because she's chaos magic, so does she exist with it? She's a Nexus being. Does she exist within what's supposed to happen and what, you know, has already been seen? Because at one point, remember, He Who Remains has said, like, oh, I can't see what's going to happen anymore. And it lines up with when Wanda becomes a Scarlet Witch. So was that the moment at which we, like, went off the rails? I don't know. But what could be the moment, and this is what I'm, like, starting to develop now, is the idea that perhaps the moment we go off the rails is after Kang Dynasty, because instead of letting He Who Remains win, what if they kill all the Kangs? We have no snip, 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 no pruning, and now that's where we get incursions, because Kang brought that up. He's like, all the multiverses, like, they're gonna run out of room and they're gonna start hitting each other, right? And you're gonna have incursion after incursion. So what if, by not having He Who Remains essentially gardening the multiverse, then they start to have incursions because the universes build into one another because they're so, like, just branching off everywhere willy-nilly. And that's how we get to Secret Wars. Then from there, we can go to a whole new set of, like, different stories with a whole new big bad. Does that make any sense?
Like, yes and no. I did start to dissociate during part of it. But first, I'm going to start with the first simple thing to put into simple terms for myself. You're agreeing with roughly my theory.
Yeah, I'm just placing Ant-Man at a different spot.
Right. Okay, that's what I wanted to understand from the beginning. I see where you're going with it, and I don't disagree. That's my point, though, is like the time being on a circle kind of thing. We're fully seeing things out of order right now, is what I strongly believe, at least as of right now. We're viewing them out of order. Doesn't mean they're happening out of order. But this goes back down to our conversation at the very beginning of this episode, which is to say, we don't really have a lot of confirmation of the order in which any of Phase 4 and now Phase 5 are taking place. Because a lot of them are not overlapping with one another, we don't have a lot of confirmation about what comes where, which characters are going here. We don't have a lot of that at all, which makes it very hard for us to understand what's going on. Loki is on a whole different level. I still barely understand Loki.
Yeah.
And I'm running theories coming out of it.
Yeah.
But I still barely understand what's going on from that show.
I was sitting in the theater last night, highly regretting not having rewatched episode 6 of Loki, because I have some questions. First of all, and we may have just answered it with that theory, but I want to get your thoughts on whether we did or not, because honestly, I don't even know what I just said 5 minutes ago. So here's my thing, and here's what was bothering me, and I was literally sitting in the theater, not even watching, like, I was watching the movie, but, like, not really fully absorbing the movie because I was trying to work this question out. Kang says he comes from a multiverse, right? You see him destroying universes. Now, we know that until He Who Remains was killed by Sylvie, there was not a multiverse. We had one singular sacred circle that we were living, Earth 616, right? Right. So, how did Kang come from a multiverse unless the moment that he entered the quantum realm, because remember, time moves down there differently too, the moment he entered the quantum realm was already the end of the Kang multiversal wars. So that would have meant that he was cast out, and then all the Kangs were destroyed. Bye, 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 bye. He Who Remains, sets up the TVA to prune, and now he's in there thinking, oh, I'm gonna go out and conquer the multiverse, but truly, the multiverse doesn't exist because he's unaware of what He Who Remains has done, which, side note, all I kept thinking throughout this movie was He Who Remains is actually no better than Kang the Conqueror, because he did the exact same thing under the guise of controlling the multiverse. Because he basically was killing people too. So that's a whole other thing. But that's what I was thinking. And then they have the Council of Kangs. So I'm like, how does that happen unless the moment at which He Who Remains was killed, the multiverse splinters, and the second you have a multiverse, every single universe gets its Kang, because the sheer existence of a universe begets the existence of Kang.
Okay.
I know, that's a lot. And I don't even know if we just answered that.
I'm primarily going off that last sentence right now to say, here's what I've understood. Here's what I've understood and put together in my brain factory. is that when the multiverses start, and they just start branching, they're not starting from, like, dino times, right? Like, we're not, like, not even, I mean, there was probably Earth before that. I mean, there was Earth before that, but, like, okay, I just wanted to, like, bring up dinosaurs. Anyway, let's just say, like, they're not prehistoric. My thought process is they just kind of start at any point, but also time can be moving differently within all of them.
Ew, don't tell me that.
Well, that's what I'm gonna think. That time does not necessarily move the exact same way in every multiverse.
I mean, it makes sense. It just adds another layer of complication and, like, borderline math that I don't want to do.
I also keep in mind multiverses spring from when somebody does something different.
Right.
So I could also understand that the reason so many Kangs are popping up is because I'm sure he makes a different choice all the time in different timelines.
Well, right, because he knows the end.
Well, yeah, and he's the number one variant.
Yeah.
Not Loki's, but though they like, to a degree are.
They did say that Loki was one of the top variants, which, as the god of mischief, makes a lot of sense.
But he wasn't doing it on purpose. The thing is to your point, Kang knows what's going to happen. So at any point on a sacred timeline where there is a Kang already in existence, even if we haven't seen one yet on our timeline where that we know of, they're going to make different choices, which therefore spawns Kangs in different multiverses.
Yeah, it's like multiverse coming out of a multiverse coming out of a multiverse.
Yeah, they're going to continue to make a lot of different choices. That's why he literally has like hundreds of thousands of versions of himself, and why he's a Nexus being.
Yeah, here's the thing I don't understand about him being a Nexus being, though, is because isn't the whole essence of a Nexus being that there's only one of you within the multiverse? There's only one Scarlet Witch. There's many Wandas, but there's one Scarlet Witch.
Maybe there's only one version of a Kang, like a specific type of Kang. Maybe there's a lot of Kangs, which we've seen.
Maybe there's only one Conqueror, or there's only one Nathaniel Richards, or one He Who Remains.
That's what I mean. Like, he's a Nexus being somewhere in his lineage.
Yeah, like there's an essence of him that is one, but there can be variants of him that are not that one.
And I wouldn't be surprised if it is Nathaniel. That wouldn't shock me.
Well, because he's the original.
Yeah, he's the kid version. He's the version where one of his older versions come back and pretty much shows him what he becomes, and he tries to avoid becoming that.
No, that's not Nathaniel. That's Iron Lad, and that's not Nathaniel. Nathaniel's the original guy who goes back in time. He is the original.
But I thought Nate was Iron Lad.
I don't think so. I don't know what Iron Lad's name is, but I'm pretty sure it's not Nathaniel, because that's too easy.
Well, I'm pretty sure when I was reading an article the other day, they called him Nate.
We're gonna settle this in the blog. Guys, check it out, because I don't know. I don't think it is, though.
Because I kept calling him Iron Lad the last blog post, and I was like, does he have a name? And I was looking through an article about something with him, and I'm pretty sure they said Nate.
But that's almost too, like, obvious who he is.
Wouldn't they all be named Nate, though?
No, they're all Kang.
But before he's Kang, isn't he Nate?
Yeah, but he, like, my thought is, like, he, like, just stops being Nate the second he goes back in time, because, like, guy goes nuts. Like, I'm getting the impression that Nathaniel Richards is just a normal guy who's a little bit bored, takes great-great-grandpa's time machine, and then becomes a crazy person. That's the vibe.
Honestly, I'm getting a headache again.
I know. And I don't even know if we answered this question about how... I don't understand how He Who Remains fits in. I don't understand at what point is he the beginning?
That's why I'm going off that theory that he's the very end. I mean, I
think he's the beginning. Or he's the point.
Well, either way, he's a stopping point. He's either the very start or he's the very beginning, in my opinion. But, like, that's what I'm getting, is because he was the last one standing, either the last one or the first one, whatever. But if time's a circle, it's all happening at the same time anyway, technically.
I have a bad theory. I mean, it's a good theory, but one that's gonna hurt.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So you know how you were saying we don't know when this takes place? And you know how we were saying that Kang kept saying he knows how it ends? You know who else said he knew how it ended and then he stopped knowing how it ended? He Who Remains. So hear me out. Sylvie shows up. What happens at the exact same moment we think that Sylvie shows up? Wanda becomes a Scarlet Witch. What if this actually takes place before WandaVision? Is that possible? It seems like it's been too long.
It is possible.
But, like, WandaVision is directly after Endgame. But here's the thing. It seems like we're further out from Endgame, right? when all this happens.
It seems that way, though, because we have so much content, to be fair.
No, but even if you look at society, like, society seems to have repaired itself, right? A lot more than what we saw of society, what little bit we saw in WandaVision. Like, I feel like society was very much still reeling. Scott seems to kind of have moved on. He wrote a whole book, seems like with the passage of time. However, I have to wonder, unless maybe Kang is not affected by Wanda's chaos magic because he's in the quantum realm. So maybe he's completely removed and would not actually recognize if there was any changes to this timeline that he thinks is what's going to happen. But also, how does he think he knows what's going to happen if there's not one sacred timeline? Like, He Who Remains, it makes sense. He's pruned it so that it always happens the same every time. But if Kang is out here just destroying multiverses, is he also working towards one sacred timeline? Like, I have so many questions. In that case, how are Kang, the Conqueror, and He Who Remains any different?
So, like, I refuse to think about certain things, and you just spawn questions. I just don't like it.
I'm just gonna think about this until Kevin gives me answers.
Yeah. See, like, I am glad I'm right about what I've been right about, and I'm just gonna run with it. Just gonna run with it. Because if you want to open that can of worms, I'm confused on how the second end credit scene, Loki's chilling with the Kang.
Well, that makes total sense to me. No, it's not.
Why is it not confusing?
Because he's not in 616 anymore.
Well, duh.
Well, right.
But none of the Kangs are in their freaking place.
But I'm saying we saw Loki go into a different universe at the end of Loki season 1, right?
Yeah.
So he's now with a different Mobius.
Right.
And they are now looking for that Earth's Kang. There he found him in that particular variant, and I forget his name, but he is a very common variant of Kang in the comics.
I don't know.
So that, to me, makes total sense.
It does, but doesn't.
It really does.
Just because there's so many Kangs, and I think my brain is tired.
But to your point, now that this movie leads directly into Loki season 2.
Which makes sense because Loki season 1 directly leads into this film.
Yeah. Which, to your point, you texted me yesterday, wow, we missed Loki. That was low-hanging fruit. We totally did.
We did. And listen, not that we're usually on par with the end credit scenes at all. We're really not. But that one was really bad.
Yeah.
For us to have missed. Because to be honest, don't remember what I said as end credit scenes.
You said Kang coming out of the multiverse, and then you said Secret Invasion because it was next. We were thinking way too literally. That's the problem.
Yeah, but I said something else, too.
I don't know. I said Agatha.
I didn't just say Secret Invasion. I don't think. Maybe it's because I block Loki out from my brain half the time, like the show, that I just, didn't even think about it.
Also, what really annoys me, 2 things. 1, I got that spoiled the day before the premiere because I went to go clear my Twitter notifications.
I literally told you not to go on social media.
I know. All I did was clear my Twitter notifications, and I saw that as a Loki mention, and it was like, spoilers. And they only did 3 lines, so I could actually still see the spoiler, and I was like, you jerk. That was 1. 2 was the thing that bothers me about us not getting that is that actually what he's wearing, that is actually a scene from a Disney Plus promo. Not that scene, but he is wearing that same outfit. So we've actually seen him in that time with Mobius before. And looking back, when I saw that, I was like, oh my god, we've literally seen him in that time before.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have put that together. You might have, but I wouldn't have.
No, I'm not saying I would have, but it's frustrating because it's like, oh my god, it was literally right there. It was so obvious they were putting it in their promos. You know, looking back, it's like, oh, hindsight's 2020, but it's so 2020, it's frustrating.
You know why we didn't say it?
Why?
Because we blatantly said in the predictions episode that most of the end credit scenes have not yet gone into shows.
That's actually so true.
That's why we said it.
That ruins that entire guardrail, and now everything's a free-for-all. There's absolutely no rules anymore.
That's why we said it, now that I think about it, because you said, well, Hawkeye did, and I was like, but not the way that fully went, and we argued a little bit over Hawkeye. So, or Black Widow going into Hawkeye.
Yeah.
So, okay, that I see that, and that was why we didn't talk about Loki. I also think there's a part of me that just forgot, but I think that was part of it.
Yeah. Moral of the story is there are no rules. Everything's on the table at all times now. And our 50-50, we're not even 50-50. We're 20% right on those. I'm gonna guess we're going down to 5% in the future. Let's be honest.
Yeah, we've reached the point where, once again, everything I thought I learned, I'm just gonna kind of backtrack on because I don't know if I learned anything. So, I don't even know. This feels like Loki all over again, where I'm like, I know there's implications. I know there is. I understand we've got millions of Kangs that want to destroy the world's universes.
Also, really quick, we debated at length what a dimension is versus a universe. Hank Pym cleared that up for us in one line last night. A dimension is equal to a universe. That has some interesting implications for Kamala Khan and her Jinn origin.
And also with Clea.
And Doctor Strange.
Mm-hmm.
So, did he travel to another universe in Doctor Strange 1? Low-key, yes he did. Pun intended.
Also, we're gonna ignore thinking about that.
Yep.
Because I don't want to.
Because I actually have a headache. So, multiverse. We're gonna need more information. I am proud of the progress that we've made in being able to understand the multiverse to the level that we have and actually being able to predict its actual shape. No, it's not Jeremy Bearimy. It is in fact the Sacred Circle, which we did predict, and that is the world's biggest checkmark, because for us to have figured out the shape of the multiverse before Marvel told us is actually, I'm like literally gonna go to bed with a smile on my face tonight. I'm so proud of us. So, go us.
Oh yeah. I looked over at my boyfriend, we both looked at each other, and I was like, we said this. He was like, you guys said this. And I was like, I know.
We love that. Also, we love a supportive fan. So, that's awesome. But I think for us to go any further and to truly understand the implications of Kangs and what's coming out of Ant-Man, I think I'm going to need more information. Like, I think I've reached the point where I can work my way through what we have so far, and I simply need more data input in order to go any further. And that's it.
Yeah, I'm on that level.
All right. Well, this has been fun. We love a good movie premiere. We love new content. We're not getting any for the foreseeable future because nobody knows when Secret Invasion's coming out and they're moving all the movies back, so TBD. But in the meantime, we very much enjoyed covering Ant-Man, talking all things multiverse, and I'm excited for more data input in the future so we can figure out more about it. If you are excited to join our journey as we puzzle through the multiverse and give ourselves headaches, you can follow on your podcast platform of choice. Also follow on the blog. Plenty of extra information, things that we didn't know while we were recording live tonight. Katie's going to do some extra research and make sure that's in the blog for you to clarify. So if you are curious to any of those answers, please go check it out. Linked in the show notes below. You can also check out our Redbubble shop if you're interested in any merch related to the show. It is much appreciated.
Make sure you guys are also following us on Twitter at Let's Talk MFT and Instagram at Let's Talk.mft. New episodes, blog posts, pretty much a lot of fun stuff goes on there. So just give us a follow on both platforms, one of the platforms if you're only on one, whatever. Just give us a good follow and you will get a lot of content your way and always stay updated. We've had a lot of fun covering Ant-Man. I'm sure there will be more to come, so make sure you guys are keeping up with our episodes as they come out because Marvel just blew your mind, so let's talk about it.